standing?
Yes, I am.
So I guess it's
But I have
Elmas sunum kimin hakkı? Onu açıklayalım. Sunum kimin?
Şu geri şeyine gelirsen göreceksin. Şu. Tamam. Open with Google Slides yapabilirsin. Google Slides.
Direkt var mı?
Şurada vardır. Yok mu? Tamam. Bu da olur. Tamam. Olur mu? Yok. Olmaz. İstersen indirip açarım.
Tamam şuradan indireyim.
Şuradan öbüründen indir. Aynen.
Şurada direkt var mı acaba sunum ya?
Şöyle, şuradan indirsen açılır.
Tamam PDF olarak açacağız.
Tamam.
Şuradan not yazalım. Tamam açıyorum ben canlı yayını.
Aynen.
Ben şöyle yapacağım. Kontak değil de ekran yapıyorum. Aynen. Şu an bir tane de şey atıyorum. Başlarında kırıp yapıyorum.
Up in there for the library. Yeah, so good. The holes are so good. There are.
That's true. And they have 7 libraries. So maybe you went to
Good morning, everyone. I want to start this session with you with Besmele, Hamdele, ve Salvele. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And this session will be about education, media, and cultural transformation. This in-person discussion will bring together yet interconnected perspectives on how education, media, and cultural practices shape and transform societies. And in the session, we will explore a range of compelling topics, from pedagogical approaches rooted in liberation and healing to the impact of the coding education on student attitudes and computational thinking, and finally, the transformation of the musical tradition in the age of digital platforms. And we are honored to have these three distinguished presenters today. And I want to start with Rasha Al-Khatib, and she will introduce herself briefly. Then stage is yours. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum everyone, it's so great to be in community with you all today. My name is Rachel Khatib and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Maryland. Alhamdulillah, I've already defended. I'm just waiting for graduation. Thank you. Thank you. So I'll be presenting about one of my dissertation papers. It's called Palestinian Pedagogies in the Writing Center, Writing Toward Liberation and Healing. I'll talk about my positionality, who I am, how I came to this topic, and why I think Writing Center support must be rethought on college campuses. I'll move to the conceptual framework, my methods, and then my implications. So my positionality, I come from a family of educators. My father is here. He's a professor of mathematics at the University of Baltimore. My grandfather was a school principal for 40 years in Palestine. And that's actually him in that photo. Now, you can tell from our faces that we may not have wanted to be there, but I can assure you that we were very happy and very thrilled to be there. And I'm in the red shirt. You'll also see that in those 3 photos, when I was in the 1st grade, I said that I wanted to be a teacher, and I did continue on into education. So I would say that it's sorry. It's definitely something that I have inherited from my family. And lastly, as we know, the first word that was revealed in the Holy Quran was Iqra, read. So literacy and specifically reading has a very strong importance in our religion. So what exactly is a writing center? In the United States context, and I think we can say broadly in the North American context, every university and community college has some form of a writing center. It is a space where students can receive support on their writing at any stage of the process. It may not be called a writing center, but it is something similar to a tutoring clinic. The Writing Center is a space for collaborative meaning making. You can come to a Writing Center tutor for support at the idea stage, at the writing stage. It is mainly a support for the composing process, but we know that English is not a neutral language. It is not a neutral form of literacy. We have privileged, standardized English practices, and professor expectations can shape what is legitimate, what is valid reading and writing. So sometimes support in the Writing Center can move from validating and affirming students towards correction and compliance, unfortunately. So in this research, I looked at what it means to write and to support writing towards liberation and healing, and how language can function as a form of power. And I define liberation as dismantling linguistic and epistemic hierarchies. We validate in the US context white standard American English, but there are other Englishes that we should validate. So my research tries to look at that. And then healing, I understand that as making a commitment to communal repair and to restoring dignity, validating all students' languages. So writing for me becomes a form of witnessing, truth-telling, and also listening. My conceptual framework is Dr. Jamila Lyscott's Liberation Literacies, and I won't read every part of it just for the sake of my voice, but literacy is understood as this social historical process. It's embodied. It's in everything that we do. And I looked at praxis from critical awareness to reflection, and how we can hold tutors and administrators in the Writing Center accountable, how we can create action that is that affirming language I've been talking about. So as I mentioned, this is a part of my dissertation research. I did a 3-paper study, and the second one, I utilized practitioner action research. So it's basically a study of my teaching and learning practices as a Writing Center tutor. So I wrote 33 journal entries about interactions that I had with students and interactions with myself, honestly, over the span of an academic year. And then I analyzed them through reflexive thematic analysis. And basically, I looked for 3 entries out of the 33 that captured moments of rupture, identifiable practice change. What was I doing from my experiences with my students that changed who I am as an educator? That's what I was looking at. And each time I wrote prompts, I responded to prompts, that looked at my tutoring moves, action-oriented practices, institutional pressures, because I am not working alone. I'm working within a system. So I looked at all of that. So my research questions, I asked, how does my evolving understanding of my Palestinian identity and tutor role shape my Writing Center tutoring practices over time? I want to pause there and say that I noticed that there are parts of my Palestinian identity that, whether I like it or not, they come up in everything that I do. There are parts of my Muslim identity, mainly because of my visible appearance, that students see, right? And so those all shape my tutoring practice, but I've never had an intentional moment to look at it until now. And then I asked what concrete changes in tutoring practice emerged through these cycles of reflection, and how do I interpret them through my framework? I did some coding twice. So the first time I looked at each individual journal entry, and then I looked at all of them together. I consolidated my themes, and I created a matrix. And this is what I found. I found that harm reduction, so when I tried to lessen the impact of linguistic injustice, and when I look at solidarity, so standing with my students, and when I also refuse these framings that the university has, I find that they are my ethical orientations. They are who I am as an educator. And I'm trying to move away from gatekeeping. I'm trying to keep this a place where everyone's language practices are validated, especially international students and multilingual speakers. So this is an example of the codes. This is just one page out of many, but I had some that were like tutoring moves, effective signals, what is a evidence hierarchy. And this might all sound abstract, but I'll show you some examples in a little bit, and hopefully will make more sense. So here's journal entry 1. This was in October 2023. I had a student that came to me in the Writing Center, and we started sharing artifacts. And this is a photo of a mother in Gaza in a hospital with her daughter. And they come from a group that are known as Afro-Palestinians. So they are Palestinians from the African diaspora. And this mother, she took a piece of tape, she put it on a piece of tile in the hospital, and she used it as a whiteboard to teach her daughter grammar during the genocide. And I won't speak for all Palestinians when I say this, but education can be a way to gain global legitimacy, but it's also a way for us to have joy in who we are and our knowledges. So I ended up sharing this with one of the students in the Writing Center, and I would say we also engage in something called consent-centered pacing, because this is hard to talk about, it's hard to look at, and we don't know what happened to this mother. And also, I don't know how I feel about using someone's experience as data while they're dying, right? So we talked about all of this. And maybe for the sake of time, I won't read exactly what my observation data was, but I would call Gaza a death world, and that is not my language alone. And Bombay has this idea as well, but that was something that I learned from a student. I did not know what a death world was before that, so this student taught me how to name something that was a part of my everyday life. So I learned from her in that way. My second journal, I looked at an evidence hierarchy. I had a student who was Muslim in the Writing Center. All of my experiences tend to be with Muslim students that are like very meaningful and impactful for me. But with this student, I was telling her that she needed to have more empirical data. And I realized I'm engaging in theft of knowledge because I'm telling the student, your knowledge is not legitimate for the academy, and I want more empirical data. What does that mean? So I started to think about like how I privilege some knowledge over another knowledges, and why do I do that? And I cited from a poem by a Palestinian poet where she uses the line, all my countries are stolen land. I mean, sometimes I'm on the wrong side of the stealing. And as you know, in the US context, this is stolen Native American land, and Palestinians have a similar case, right? So what does it mean to exist on this land? And what knowledges am I inadvertently stealing? Sometimes we say like our intention matters as Muslims, but we also need to look at the impact, right? And so this was a case of that. Okay, this is a show on Netflix called Mo. I highly recommend it. I won't spoil anything, but I did recommend this to a student because Mo is actually a stateless Palestinian refugee in Houston, Texas, so he doesn't have any legal documentation. In the show, he was like seeking asylum, and I had a student in the Writing Center who was documented, which means that she is from the Dreamers and has temporary protected status, but no pathway to citizenship. And I want to say that I don't know if another tutor could recommend this text in the same way that I could with the connections that I have. And it's not to say that like I'm doing something so amazing and no one else can do that. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying there's a part of my identity that allows me to have connections with people because I'm Palestinian, because I'm Muslim. So what is the takeaway from all of this? I will say that individual reflection is important, but it's also, okay, I'll be quick, but it's also not a substitution for the system, right? The collective. I don't want to say that the individual tutor has the solution. I don't want to overlocate it within them. This is a system, it's communal, it's structural. I'll quickly say that writing is a form of witnessing, it's a form of healing, it is powerful, and it's a personal commitment that I have. I want to be sustainable. I want to keep writing, keep growing, and I think that this methodology allowed me to do that because it validated who I am and the embodied practices I have, and I think it can be good for other tutors. Quickly, I'll connect this back to my theoretical framework, and then this is the last slide, but if you remember, it had multiple tenets, and one of them was awareness. So writing helped me name what I was witnessing. It helped me protect my agency and my voice, and also those of my students. And it also restored agency because I started to look at my students through the lens of confidence repair and what is pedagogical rigor. And lastly, I think we need to provide some protections. Like, I don't want to blame the individual tutor. I think that the admin needs to provide some protections for us. And that is all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thanks for this sharing your experiences. Thanks a lot. We will take questions after all our participants finish their presentations. Now we are continuing with Berkay Köseoğlu from the Turkish Ministry of Education Department. And his title is The Impact of High School Level Coding Activities on Student Attitudes Towards Coding and Computational Thinking Skills. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Morning, hello everyone. My name is Berkay Köseoğlu. Welcome and thank you for being here. Today, I'm excited to share our presentation titled The Impact of High School Level Coding Activities on Student Attitudes Towards Coding and Computational Thinking Skills. Especially, I studied algebraic thinking skills in early grades, but in here we will talk about computational thinking skills, that is a different one. And my colleagues in here, this study was collaborated, conducted by Aslan Karataş from Beykent University and my other colleagues, Nursuma Oğlu Öztürk from Anadolu University. We try to find something about computational thinking and our thinking skills related to our mind power. Today, face-based work, we have some differences. To begin, let's look at why this research is critical in today's landscape. We are living in a fast-paced digital era, and the technology was really fast, and it has emerged a fundamental literacy and corsical for the 21st century. A central concept in this transformation, a key role, computational thinking, we can say CT. CT is not just about writing code, it is a mental framework that plays a vital role in developing problem solving and analytical thinking skills. It allows students to break down complex problems into manageable parts. Furthermore, we know from previous studies that engaging with coding activities significantly improves students' self-efficacy and their overall ability to solve problems. Our study builds on this foundation to see how these benefits manifest in specific high school students and specifically high school settings. Despite the recognized importance of coding, we identified a critical gap in the literature. While many studies look at higher cognitive side or affective side, our study is combined all of them. The specifically impact of Python-based instruction in high school. To bridge this gap, we designed this study. Our main purpose in this study to examine the effects of an 8-week Python-based instruction program. We want to measure its impact to distinct areas, the students' computational thinking skills and attitudes towards coding. This purpose led us to two core research questions. First, do text-based coding activities at the high school level actually influence students' attitudes towards coding? And do these same activities influence their computational thinking skills? To answer these questions, we utilized a quantitative research method. Specifically, this was a quasi experimental design without a control group. In our design, the independent variable was coding activities in high school students participated in. Our dependent variables we tried to measure were their attitudes towards coding and their computational thinking. skills. For our measurements, we relied on two highly uh, reliable instruments. One of them from Abdussalam and Uzoğlu 2020, the Attitude Towards Coding Scale, which consists of 45 I 47 items, and other one, the computational thinking skill scale from Dolmaca and Akan 2020, consisting of 40 items. We verified their reliability also using Chromebook Alpha, achieving a 0.93 for attitude scale and a range of 0.7 or 291. For the computational thinking scale, conforming both are reliable, so that our intervention process in here, as you can see, introduction, items, and basic concepts. This is week one concept, and second one operators in Python, and we move to decision structures like if, else. This is Python's some process. Next, we covered list arrays and string, and finally, the student applied their knowledge in their examples. Let's look at who participated in our research. We administered both pre-test before the intervention and post-test afterward, using the same measurement tools. Our target population was high school students in Turkey during the 2023 to 2024 academic years. Using convenience sampling to select easily accessible individuals, this is our sample. We focused on high school, as I said, in Aydın. The final sample consisted of 35 students enrolled in a private programming course. The gender distribution was very balanced, with 17 female students and 18 male students. Data analysis. For the data analysis, we used IB and SPSS statistic program. Our first step was to examine the normality of the data distribution. This step dictated our taste. For normally distributed data, we plan to use pair sample t-test. For non-formally distributed data, we use the Wilcoxon sign-right test. Here are the normality results based on the Shapirovic test. For attitude towards coding, the p-values was 0.001, meaning this data doesn't follow a normal distribution. And commercially, for computational thinking, the values was 0.7 and 827, indicating this data does follow a normal distribution. It was normal. Therefore, we applied different tests for each variable for computational thinking skills and attitude. Now our findings. Using the Wilcoxon sign-right test for attitude toward coding, the resulting p-value was 0.806, meaning no statistically significant difference was found. Using the paired samples t-test for computational thinking, the p-value was 0.797, which also resulted in no statistically significant difference. Ultimately, the data showed no significant difference between pre-test and post-test scores for either value. While we didn't find significant difference, understanding why is just as important. We identified several contributing factors. The 8-week duration may have been too limited to cause a measurable shift. The small sample size of 35 students limited our statistical power. The instructional materials had a limited scope. And then, notably, these students already had prior coding experience and volunteered for the course, which may indicate a higher initial proficiency, essentially creating a ceiling effect from the very beginning. Based on the insights, we have few key recommendations for future research. Because this research is really limited, this is just only for DCA sample. First, the duration of the intervention should be extended and studies should be conducted with measure larger sample size. And second, it is crucial to use experimental designs that include control groups. Finally, we recommend incorporating alternative instructional approaches, such as game-based learning or project-based learning. Implementing these changes will provide clearer, more robust evidence on the true impact of programming education. As I said, I studied different thinking skills, critical thinking skills. We have computational thinking skills, algebraic thinking skills. That's different one. Maybe we can sort of investigate deeply in this.
Few times.
Okay, this is Emily. This is last sentence. Thank you very much for the time and attention today. This is different one, and I would now to be happy to answer any questions or anything else. Yeah, as I can.
Thank you, Berkay, for this thoughtful, provoking presentation. And there are so many numbers that maybe most of you they are meaningful, but I think that you should give us time to understand, and maybe you will have some questions about that in the question and answer part. Now we are continuing with Hasan Kamil Genç from Siirt University, and his presentation's title is Makam Music Under Platformization, a quantitative analysis of changes in song intros and total durations in the case of İnce Saz.
Maybe he can perform before the presentation.
Yes, we would like to hear that.
I should have known that in the first place. Okay. So, hi everyone. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you guys. Since we have limited time, I'll just jump straight into the presentation. So let's think about it for a second. When we listen to music, how many of us hit skip if the vocals don't kick in the first 10 seconds? Most of us do that, right? Yeah. This impatience actually is quite new. We used to go to a shop and buy a physical CD or a cassette to hear an album. We truly own that music actually in the traditional method. Having that physical object in our hands made us more patient, allowing the music to create its own aesthetic time. But once music left those boxes and moved to digital platforms, that physical bond actually broke, replaced by the speed of algorithms. So today we'll explore how this platformization beast is forcing İnce Saz's lovely tracks into a fast consumption box. Let's dive into this musical detective work from 1999 to 2025. So music is no longer lives in record stores. It lives in the invisible algorithms in our pockets. I don't have my phone with me right now. I can't show you. So giants like Spotify and Apple Music operate on what we call the attention economy. So this system is specifically designed to maximize listeners' loyalty while minimizing skip rates. So we can see the formal impact of this pressure very clearly in Western music data. The average track length in the West declined from 9 minutes and 30 seconds in 1995, as we can see there, to just 3 minutes and 42 seconds by 2019. So, but how does this global Western-centric pressure for speed affect Turkish makam music, which inherently demands time, aesthetic time? So in this study, we will track the traces of this structural contraction through Ingesaz's 26-year discography. So the favorite word of platform owners is democratization. So they promise a world where everyone has equal access and all barriers are removed. But the numbers tell a very different story. Look at this. 78% of all streams and 83% of all revenues are controlled by just the top 1% artists. So the remaining millions of creators exist on the edge of invisibility. Even more interesting, 72% of what we listen to actually isn't our own discovery. So that's shocking. It's the result of algorithmic recommendations. The result, the 68% of artists report that their music income has decreased with platforms. So these platforms aren't just a democratic space, they are a digital hierarchy operating on a winner takes all dynamics, concentrating wealth and visibility within a very, very narrow elite. So why is makam music one of the genres most affected by this digital pressure? Because makam music isn't a fast food snack, it's a slow cooked feast that inherently demands aesthetic time, as I mentioned earlier. We have three core traits that unfortunately end up on the algorithm's blacklist. First, it's time-dependent structure. So the Seir melodic progression, you can say that, simply needs time to unfold. Second, those long intros we love so much. In traditional practice, these aren't just openings. They are the identity of makam itself. And finally, the instrumental depth, which is just as vital as the lyrics. However, for an algorithm, these three layers of depth translate to only one thing: a bored listener and a dangerous skip button, unfortunately. In this speed-driven ecosystem, makam music is being forced to compromise its very soul just to stay relevant. Um, so, how do we prove this theoretical conflict? This is where we zoom in on the Ingesaz ensemble. Why Ingesaz, you may ask? Because they offer an uninterrupted discography from 1999, I'm sorry, to 2025, allowing us to trace every stage of the industry's evolution. In my study, I established 2015 as a critical threshold. So this is the breaking point where streaming platforms became the new center of music industry. I divided my analysis into periods before and after this date, manually measuring every official recording on Spotify. You may not like this one because we have some computational methods right now to measure these, and I'm working on that for my further studies, hopefully. And I'm taking a PhD class on this matter actually. So I just wanted to mention that. And so manually measuring every official recording on Spotify is my method. Intro also is defined as the interval from the track's start to the onset of the lyrics. Let's see how the 2015 threshold created a gap in the temporal perception of makam music. Now we are entering the world of hard data here. In figure one, we can see Ince Saz's 24-year journey. Take a look at that massive peak. The Yollar album over there in 2011. The average track duration is a staggering 6 minutes and 21 seconds, I'm sorry. So this represents the actual volume required for the aesthetic time and instrumental depth of makam music. But once we hit the 2015 threshold, as you can see there, represented by that red line, everything changes. The average duration, which was 355 before 2015, drops to 328 as the platform effect takes off. So it may not look a big difference, but I'm telling you that, guys, it's a big difference actually. So that is an overall structural contraction of 11.6%. This isn't just an artistic edit, it is a mandatory alignment with the platform's ideal track standards. So we previously saw the 11.6% decline in albums, but the truly devastating effect is felt when we shift formats, as seen in figure 2 here. The 355 average duration in pre-2015 albums drops to 328 in the streaming era. But the most striking point is the green bar on the right side. In the 2024 and 2025 singles, the duration falls to exactly 2 minutes and 47 seconds. This represents a staggering 29% reduction from our baseline. This is a radical compression, nearly a minute below of the album is being replaced by works that have become algorithmic data units, each one optimized for retention to survive within the platform's ecosystem. I'm being faster right now. Now for the heart of the research, the vanishing introduction. In makam music, the intro is not just a technical start, it is a ritual that represents the listener for the mood. However, figure 3 here paints a painful picture actually. The enjoyable 40.3 second intro of 2002 dropped to 19.2 seconds in 2017, documenting a structural concession to the digital shift. By the 2024 and 2025 singles, we are down to just 12.4 seconds. So this represents a staggering 96.2% loss, actually. In short, the traditional makam introduction, essential for establishing the musical atmosphere, is being sacrificed to the ruthless economic rules of platform logic, we can say. And to wrap things up, the numbers we discussed today reflect much more than a shrinking clock. They represent an existential threat to a century-old tradition. So under the pressure of fast consumption, the unique colors of our makam music are fading, we can say, giving way to a standardized homogenization. The time-demanding aesthetic, the very soul of the makam, is struggling to breathe within the narrow boundaries of platform logic. Ultimately, when art is reshaped to serve algorithms and economic interests, the vast richness and spontaneity of creative expression are inevitably restricted. Truth be told, I had much more to share with you, but in line with platform logic, I realized that if I extended this presentation any further, my listener retention would completely collapse. So thank you for your patience. Thank you.
We would like to thank all our three presenters. They are all very interesting topics. And we will start now the question and answer part. But I want to start first with your permission. And I want to start first to Rasha. We are so eager to read your dissertation. Inshallah, one day you will publish it. And I want to ask you, what challenges have you faced during your study? Because academic neutrality and the political engaged pedagogy, have you witnessed any challenges? Just I want to ask you.
That is a really good question. I think because I'm a U.S. citizen, I don't face the same type of like risk that an international student would face. So I think I have more institutional protections in that way. But there is a risk of being Palestinian in the academy. But I do accept that risk, and I knew it was safe enough to write about it. I'll also share that before I formed my dissertation committee, I told them this is going to have undertones of Palestinian identity and Islam, because some of my committee members were women of color who do not have tenure, so their protections in the institution are less. And they said, we value your identity, and we would love to support you, and we want to be on this project. So I think that gave me the confidence to continue. I'll also say, like, I understand the religiosity of the data, and that's a unique experience, but the institution is secular, and I think they accept diversity, but there's a limit, especially when it comes to religiosity. But I push that limit, and after that, it hasn't worked out too bad in my favor. So I'm proud of who I am, and I think people respect me more because I'm proud and unapologetic.
Thank you. Good answer. Thank you so much. And I want to continue with Farkay. I just wonder if there's any differences across gender or socioeconomical backgrounds with the data that you reach from the students. Is there any differences that you witness?
Especially we try to find our sample easily, easy accessible. But that's a good question. Maybe we can try to find different research perspective of their males and females. But that's all.
Thank you. And for Kamil, we are so sad that we see that digitalization affects everything, and we lost our tradition too. As you say, it's fading.
Yeah.
And you study with Ingesas, but do you think to study the other instruments that do you want to extend your research?
Honestly, Ingesas is a good representative in this matter because they have an ongoing discography from 1999 to 2025, and they are a strong representative of Turkish makam music. But to further investigate, we could use other groups as well to see the results. But as a matter of fact, Ingesas is a strong representative. So for further studies, yeah, we could do that.
Thank you. And for now, our guests, please feel free to ask your questions.
I have a question for Kamil, actually. Can you go to slide 6?
Of course.
All right.
This one?
Yes. The way you calculated the mean track time,
Sorry.
how did you calculate the mean track time?
Manually.
Well, my question is, you know, the inflection zone
Yeah.
before and after?
Threshold.
The 2011, it's kind of an outlier when you look at the data. So the question is, did you normalize before calculating the mean, or just a mean calculation without normalization?
I just put it there, just mean calculation, honestly.
So, an
Are you
interesting.
asking about normalizing tests?
No, it's just normalization of the data because as you see, there's no upper limit for the data points, and 2011 is an outlier. If you remove that from the graph, it looks pretty stable actually. Might be the reason why you see that spike. So normalizing would be an interesting approach to look at it. And the other question I have is, did you compare the listening number of people listening through the digital platforms versus the track record before and after?
This actually ultimately reshapes the production process of the music creators, and when we listen to music, it also reshapes our aesthetic demand for music. So when we look at the music creators, I talked to some of them. I asked them if they, take this into account when they produce music. I'm talking about the people who produce Turkish makam music. They said that we always take that into account when we produce because we need to be visible on the platforms. That's how we make money. And the second one was, what was that?
The number of track sales before the digitalization and the number of listeners in the platform.
No, I haven't looked into that. No, I don't have the records for that. And Spotify do not provide those records for these kind of research.
Yes, please.
This question is for Dr. Rasha. So the Writing Center is not a neutral ground, although it's supposed to be, and you cannot control how you're perceived when you walk into the Writing Center. So I wrote a paper called Driving While Black, Driving While Gazan, and I'm going to just explain it because I know you know what I mean, but other people may not. So when you're driving while black, just being black in the United States, the police pull you over for being black. And so I wrote a paper about being Gazan and how you're guilty by association, you're a problem, there's all these preconceived notions about you. And then there's a conversation all of a sudden about encampments and genocide, and all of this will affect your grade, none of which you came to the Writing Center for. And so how is the student dynamic different with your colleagues as opposed to the administrators? And how can the Writing Center become a space of liberation rather than continued oppression or enslavement or response to this sort of driving while Gazan? And then how you're supposed to have this power over what you write, but you really don't. And you mentioned Mo. I'd like to know how the role of humor in the Writing Center, how does that affect the power dynamics?
These are all really good questions. There is a criminalization of Palestinian voices in the academy and also globally, right? I think for me, this is maybe not the answer that you want or the answer that is politically correct, but I just want to do my work, get my check, and leave. And that is because I have this burnout from the academy. I'm like, maybe it's just not the place for a Palestinian scholar. Maybe it's just a contractual obligation, and that is it for me. But I don't always believe in that. I believe that education at the Writing Center can be a space for humanizing witnessing and a form of repair. And I think that's where the comedy comes in. But I also think it's excavating the story from within yourself and looking inward. Everything that I need to be a humanizing educator, I already have within myself. And it is not the experiences with my colleagues in the Writing Center that help me excavate it, but maybe they led me closer to it. And so I think humor can be a form of relationship building, and also seeing that this is a valid academic source. We can bring it into the academy. I don't want to give that permission, but I think naming gives that power. And I think the older version of me, the younger version of me, wouldn't have recommended a text like that. I would have said, like, I'm not going to talk about being Palestinian in the Writing Center, but I actually like came out as Palestinian in 2023. That's when I started to tell people I'm not Arab American, I'm Palestinian American. This is where it is on the map. But I did, and I'll quickly say this, I did have an experience with one of my colleagues in the Writing Center where I was asked to explain land rights and borders, and I just felt like that was teaching labor that I did not need to do. And I didn't want to do it, but I did do it. And I do have, like, unfortunately, I do have some regrets about the way that I present myself, but I see them as learning opportunities, and I'm hoping to take them with me to the next writing center I go to. It's just sometimes you wish in real time you knew, but that is the life of a learner. So I hope I answered.
Thanks so much for this.
Yeah, I have a question for Hassan Kamil. And you mentioned the musical pieces by Ingesas.
Sorry?
You mentioned the musical pieces by Ingesas, comparing the pieces before 2015 and after 2015, and in platform, in digital platforms. What about the concerts where the musical pieces are played lively? Do you think that, did you observe that kind of skipping the intro or reducing the time of musical performance in concerts? Because concerts are continuous before 2015 and after 2015. There's no rapture in the conference structure.
So basically, what they play at concerts are the same things they put on Spotify or YouTube Music or Apple Music. So they are playing the same song actually. So there is no difference between a concert or the track that they placed on Spotify. So that would be the answer, right?
I have a question for Dr. I focused on one word in the presentation. I'm sorry. It was the word identity. And the reason that I focused on it is because I recently rewatched a video from the First Republic, where an elderly man was searching for the rubble of his home. And the journalist, the Al Jazeera journalist, was asking him, what are you looking for? The ancient momentums, a leg from a relative. I'm not trying to be funny. I mean, that's serious stuff. And he said, he very gloomily, and just as you would expect, death and destruction, very gloomily said, I'm looking for my identity card, because the first away from me is your identity, and I can't find my identity card. And started mumbling to himself. And so the question is about the identity of the Palestinians amongst the Palestinians themselves. I have had experiences with friends from as early as a college roommate when I was 17 years old. He was 27 years old. And not him, but because of him, I have other Palestinian friends, and they say I'm Lebanese, and I think he's Lebanese for like 3 or 4 years, and then somebody says, no, he's Palestinian. I said, no, he's Lebanese. No, he's like, I go, well, let's go ask him, are you Lebanese or Palestinian? I said, well, because there's another guy there who knows he's Palestinian. Well, and then his voice changes, and he says, well, I am Palestinian. Hello, I'm Lebanese. So I have some proof that some of them bought into it, actually, that is the first thing that they want to destroy. So I'm not going to keep giving examples or anything because it's a depressing subject, but I want to know, did you find any research about that in your research? Can you give me the name of a book? Can you give me a subject matter? Can you give me a specialist or somebody, maybe a fellow Palestinian academic that has done research on that subject? I know that I suspect that because I've heard it empirically, not in research. Some of the 47 not participants, people who went through 1947 and saw the destruction and had to actually get up and leave, and some of their relatives were shot and killed right in front of them, children. Some of them have learned helplessness. I've seen that myself, where they actually say, there is no more Palestine. I'm an American. That's all there is to it. Whether then I'll stop. What are your experiences? That's enough. I'm sorry.
I do have recommendations for you and for anyone else who's interested. There's Dr. Hanadi Shabara, who's at California State University in San Diego, and Dr. Zina Zakaria, who's actually here in Maryland. They do that research. Hidal Romishi does fiction writing about that. But to your point, I do notice that erasure, and I am not going to contribute to that, hopefully. I see my research as a form of documenting lived experiences, but also like, who am I to deny someone's identity in diaspora? I think that all Palestinians who identify as Palestinian are Palestinian regardless of documentation. Documentation can validate your identity, sure, but it is not the only marker of identity. And so I relate to you in that way. Something that I'm interested in looking at is, I notice that people from Gaza always say that they're from Gaza. They don't say that they're Palestinian. And I don't want to generalize, but that has been my experience. And so why is there that divide? Because we're all Palestinians, but there's also been separation for decades and a different documentation. What does that mean? I do not know, but I'm sure there is research out there, and maybe some of you know, and you can share that answer with me. But there's a lot to learn, and so I'd start there with those scholars. But you're mentioning a very interesting point about identity. In my case, I do have Palestinian documentation. I'm very lucky in that way, but also, like, why am I expressing love at something that I inherited, something that comes from my ancestry? It is the way that it is. I'm not accepting it, but I am just recognizing that it is. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I have a question for each speaker, in fact, starting with Hassan. But because I'm a professor of mathematics for many years, my questions tend to be more towards teaching and learning. So for Hassan, could these shifts that you mentioned impact how maqam is taught or performed in the future? And for Bertie, how can these activities be scaled to larger classrooms effectively? And Rasha, my daughter, can these pedagogies be applied in non-Palestinian contexts?
Yes, you start.
Honestly, Makam music is being taught in a very traditional method currently. I haven't observed any difference on how they teach. I'm a student at musicology at Istanbul Technical University, so I take classes in Makam theory. I haven't observed any difference because of this platform logic, but in the nearest future, I can foresee that there could be some changes in how they, teach makam music, because the new generation they demand speed, and this traditional makam music, Turkish makam music, demands time for the aesthetic approach. I can only say that in the nearest future there could be differences in how they teach makam music. As far as I'm concerned.
Thank you, Professor. Nice to meet you here. And that's a really good point of your view. Sometimes we are thinking about this really technical area. The computer is very complex to use on the class. This is a really hard one, but we have different activities to use this coding skills in our classes, like maybe paper-based activities. We have some thesis depend on their algorithms. We focus to algorithm skills, and here this is not just about Python. Maybe we can use different programs to build count. And but I don't want to generalize everywhere because it's really complex structure to access high-level thinking skills, because and also thinking skills takes time. Everything it's not be really as so. We should try to step by step, like algorithm, the firstly really casual things, and maybe in our daily routines, do step by step. In early grades, we start with early grades, and then middle grades and high school. This is just only focused high school level, so and really limited time to see their result. To your question,
So for me, I like Palestinian pedagogies because of the alliteration. They both start with the letter P. It rolls off the tongue nicely. But I did cite and drew a lot from Black liberation pedagogies in the U.S. context. In Palestinian culture, we have this idea of samud or steadfastness, and in literature that I read from Black scholars in the U.S., there is spirit murdering, Dr. Bettina Love, and I see it as like something similar, where there's like this destroyal of your soul, your spirit, your joy, your happiness, and also like reclaiming that and resisting, but also just existing as you are to experience joy. So I can see that intentionality between the two. There's also a book that I would recommend. It's called Born Palestinian, Born Black. It draws on that similar criminalization that Mariam had asked about. So I definitely see an opportunity for everyone to integrate their identity into the work that we do. I will also just quickly add that it is very taxing to do this work, to excavate a solution from within your own identity and your lived experiences. But if you are able to do it, it is so rewarding. Thank you. Yes.
My question is for Rasha. You and I have kind of spoken about this a lot, about the power of storytelling and where the story begins, and this idea of how academia is an institution and how even our existence and our presence in it is, I see it as, challenging, and in a way it's a resistance against the narratives that are being told about Muslims, about, Palestinians, and about other racial groups. So my question to you is, how can professors and educators who would like to be in academia make space for their students, make sure that they are allowed to include their students' voices and their lived experiences without censoring them, but at the same time meeting the academic standard of rubrics and being fair to all students as well?
That is a good question. I won't claim to have a solution, but I do believe that we can engage in harm reduction, limiting the harm of invalidating students and their lived experiences. I know Mufan is probably familiar with this concept of funds of knowledge, bringing in, perfect. So you're familiar, everyone. It's the idea, just as a reminder, bringing your whole self and being excited to meet that whole self, not asking students to leave parts of their identity outside the walls or doors of the classroom. In the case of the Writing Center, because we meet with students in such a short amount of time, I can't always validate their lived experiences. Sometimes I meet them for an hour and that's it, and I don't meet them again. So unfortunately, I don't think there are many opportunities to be culturally responsive, but with Palestinian pedagogies, I think that I can, because I am an empathetic witness, or I want to know who this student is. I believe that is a form of liberation, welcoming the whole self. So I can't separate that from what I do. Now, do some students want that when they come to the Writing Center? Maybe not, but it's what I do, and I hope that it lands in my relationship building. So that's the epistemology and the ontology that I come to the Writing Center with. I just want to say, I believe in the Writing Center as a place for liberation. I believe in its power. I believe in the power of writing. For me, I come to this work because, as we all know, on the day of judgment, we are going to be asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did we do with our knowledge and what did we do with our time? And I want to have a good answer. I want to say that I spread knowledge and that I didn't keep it within myself. And that's one of the ways that we're going to be accountable. What did we do? So I encourage, on that note, for everyone to use their time in the way that feels meaningful to them and feels authentic to their experiences. Yes.
I have a question for Sandra, because you said and disappointed me by saying it's not our own discovery, like the songs we listen. It's our algorithm. I was under the impression for myself that I am actually deceiving my algorithm so that it can recommend me songs that I like? Am I under an illusion, or can we feed our algorithm so that it can recommend songs that to our own taste?
That's a very, very good question. We can actually. So our, as I mentioned earlier, 68% of the listens occur on the platforms are driven by the algorithms itself, as you said. So this actually shapes our aesthetic understanding towards music, towards art. Uh, only small amount of percentage the people when they listen, they are careful listeners. They know what to listen, and we need to be fully aware of that actually when we listen to music. Because in my own experience, for example, I was listening to a particular song, and after that, suddenly a music that is fully aligned with algorithmic standards occur after that, and there is no relation between these two songs. So and after some time, I discovered that I like listening to Mabel Matiz, which earlier I never like listened, and I observed of myself that my own aesthetic, understanding of music reshaped by this algorithm. So, what we need to do in this particular issue is to be a careful listener on platforms. We need to be fully aware of these algorithms, and we need to be very careful about our musical cultures to, maintain their, existence. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the dislike button, by the way. When you do that, like, it rules out that artist or that genre. So it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a way. Yeah, exactly.
Actually, mine is well the question, a suggestion. I don't know whether you want to continue in this field, in this topic, but maybe you could have maybe a dip or your parameter, but because the willingness and motivation of these activities. Just we actually did a project on like STEM major students and their other cognitive abilities like special cognition, how they locate their in their mind. So maybe you could add other skills to the application as well. So maybe you can give some tasks and some I don't know skills to measure their willingness to attempt these activities because sometimes in this era it's like not like a motivation, like inner motivation, but like a mandatory things to attempt these activities because it is the age of the digitality and coding is really important. And if you want to get a job and get money, especially in this field, you should be able to do the basic things. So maybe the mindset of these children, or let's say teenagers, could be interesting to look at.
Exactly. You're totally right. Especially we applied this research in 8 weeks. This is a really limited time, and you said, and as I said, maybe do you remember, we didn't find any difference their attitude levels because of this. They was volunteer. They was really interested, motivated to fully motivated. Maybe they had learned before the course. So it was a really different point. And you are totally right. And I also studied STEM, and is my other major, I can say. And we should different skills, different maybe we should different activities to see their results, and we expend their time to, as you said, we should take time to understand the numbers. This is really hard and complex thing. Maybe you are feeling illusion in the illusion because we don't know exactly how to algorithms uh, works. This is different things. If you understand the algorithms, this our brain is do this autonomous, but we change this, we learn everything step by step. As you asked me, this is a really good question. If our brain understand everything and do everything step by step, but we don't realize this. We should to understand everything, and we combine all skills to improve ourselves, especially as you said in this era. In this era. Thank you. That's a good.
Section. Brain has shortcuts on daily decision making, stop overthinking.
Thank you. Is there any more questions? So our session will end very soon. If not, yes, yes, yes.
It's about your research. The way you define writing, do you think it's kind of reductionist because there are different type of writing? Policy brief, expectations of policy briefs are different compared to scientific papers and books. Yeah, I've been teaching a lot of politics of developing nations and Middle Eastern politics, and I've seen some wild stuff, as you can guess, and I have to direct some students to writing centers to the expectation that they can differentiate different types of writings, because with the number of students I'm not dealing with, my feedback is only limited. So the question is again, is it kind of a reductionist approach to the writing styles and different expectations that we establish? And afterwards.
That's a good question. I think in the U.S. context, like everything is so racialized, how could it not be, or how could we not recognize that racialized component? So unfortunately, yes, we do reduce all forms of writing that don't align with our ideas of like standardized white American English. I think in your case, you're mentioning or you're alluding to genre expectations. Yeah, I don't think that we're a solution for teaching students how to write. Like I had experiences where a professor recommended that a student come to the writing center as sort of like a bridge program, and that it was my responsibility to teach them how to become a doctoral level writer. And I cannot do that. I'm not skilled to do that. The writing center is not for that. We are not an editing service. We are here to help students identify patterns in their writing and then revise those patterns. So I think that many people misunderstand the writing center and try to locate it as a place for solutions, but it is just one part of the writing experience. And I would say we're making progress towards being humanizing, but I don't believe we can ever eradicate deficit ideas. Unfortunately, we can only just limit their harm and hope for the best. But I hate that response. It's just the reality of what we're working under for now. And I hope I answered your question.
Thank you so much. I would like to end our session. I would like to thank all our three presenters and our dear guests. Their contributions are so valuable for us. And if you want to continue your questions in the break time, you can catch them and ask your questions. I thank you all you are being here and attending this symposium. And we have now a break for lunch and salah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Just a quick reminder, thank you so much, Yoga, for cheering and for helping us and accepting this. And I would like to thank the presenters for the insightful presentations. Now we will move for the lunch in the next like 10-15 minutes. It should be ready. And now we will have the prayer break as well until 2. So at 2, we will meet at the Ottoman Hall, the same place where we will have our lunch. At the same hall, we will have some roundtable discussion around certain topics. So no more presentations for you. It's only going to be one online session led by Dr. Usama Hoja. And so it's going to take about 1.5 hours. And then we are relatively free for today. So we'll have some time for resting. And then later on at 4:30 or 4:15, let me check it, at 4:15, we will have you back. You can think of it as 4. At 4, we will have you back at the auditorium, at the main hall, for announcement of the best presentation and the best paper award. And as you know, both of those awards are round-trip flight to Turkey, like from US to Turkey or from Turkey to US, both ways on Turkish Airlines, I think within this year. So we will announce the best presentation and the best paper. I would recommend you to be there if you think you will get the award, you know. I don't know how the judges are going to act, like would they require you to be there or not, but the best case scenario, you should be there, I think, for you. Just a recommendation. Other than that, for today,
I think we should be done. We have a sport activity if you want to join us tonight. If you don't want, we can think of some other activities. Maybe Ojam, like ice cream or something. We can, if the chairman joins us, we can organize that one too. And we are here to make you happier, because the academic stuff are sometimes very stressful, right? So we want to make you like be happy and comfortable here. Do you have a question?
I'm gonna invite everyone if you come over here tonight.
Yeah, I already texted that on the group. So we have many events are going on today and tomorrow. One of them is the health fair downstairs. The other one is the 23rd of April, Yirmish Nisan celebration of the kids. I think you would enjoy watching the kids too. And the third one is tonight. We have a gathering of the leaders led by Brother Lokman, the head of the Muhtadin department, one of your colleagues at the symposium, and we will gather there for dhikr, right? Did I miss anything?
So far, dhikr pizza.
Dhikr and pizza. Pizza is.
Also, they have musicians. Yeah.
You have musicians, right? Would you have what? Musicians. Not really.
We could if you.
Hojam? Yes, of course.
Bring the hood, bring the stuff.
Yeah. So I will send you the venue. I will be sending you the venue where the house is, so we'll meet there if you want to come. And there will be new Muslims, we'll make some basic dhikrs, La ilaha illallah, and other salawats, right, inshallah. And tomorrow, because I find you all here, I want to remind you about everything. For tomorrow, we are planning a DC trip. If you want to join us, let us know through the form that I've sent on the WhatsApp group. Even if you are not a student like presenting, but if you still want to join us, you're a scholar or a graduate student or a chair, so please text us and let us know so that we can arrange the bus, the shuttle accordingly. We are planning to visit Capitol Building, the Library of Congress, if we are able to find the tickets over there. And relatively, we are very flexible in this stuff. Other than that, do you have any question other than what I have said? Did I miss anything? Okay, so the lunch is gonna be like in 15-20 minutes at the Ottoman Hall in the restaurant, the same place where we have our breakfast. And as I have said, again, we will gather there again at 2 p.m. after the prayer for the roundtable discussion and the debate. And at 4:15 again, we will come back to the auditorium for the best paper and best presentation award and for the closing ceremony. Good? Okay? Okay.
Notebooks and books. No, super no.
Thank you for your question.
I have everything in all my books, all my journals.
Yeah.